Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about strengthening nonprofit accountability through audit-ready financials. I have just a few housekeeping items before we get started today. We would love to answer your questions, so please chat those to us in the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to all of them. If we don't, we will make sure to follow up with you. And I wanted to let you know you will be getting an email with a copy of the presentation as well as a link to the recording, so feel free to share that with your colleagues. And also just a request that at the end of the webinar there will be a quick survey. It would really help us if you would fill that out and give us your feedback. We'd love to have that. Some quick introductions. I'm Joan Benson, and I lead the nonprofit industry marketing team at Sage Intact. And also joining us today is Jane Dennis. And Jane leads our nonprofit solution consulting team. And Jane's going to actually take us deep into the product, and she's going to kind of show us how the concepts that we're talking about today, how that's actually accomplished in the technology itself. So at a high level, an overview, we're going to start by talking about nonprofit audit requirements. We're going to talk about automation and controls. And then we're going to look at a little bit at how the cloud has really transformed this area and technology that makes it work. And then we'll share some resources with you and take your questions as well. Audits are extremely important, especially to nonprofit organizations. And I think a lot of that has to do with the increased competition for funding, increased scrutiny, greater visibility, and I think because there's been some examples of fraud and poor performance in a few nonprofits, it really makes it critical to maintain your organization's reputation, and having a good, clean audit is certainly a part of that. Ensuring compliance with state and federal guidelines from an audit perspective are going to have a lot of positive benefits for your organization. Audits matter because more and more funders want confirmation of accountability and transparency. And of course, there's always the legal ramifications that come into play when you're talking about a nonprofit organization and the accountability and responsibility, whether from an employee or a staff member or from a board of directors as well. One of the things we found is that real-time access to your data, your reports, your metrics, performance has become critical for growing nonprofit organizations, and it's a key element to what we're talking about today, that accountability, that transparency, that performance management. And what makes it really nice is to be able to open your laptop, your tablet, or even your phone and have an instant real-time view of data and metrics that are really important and crucial to your organization. Allowing you to proactively and effectively manage critical aspects of your organization while strengthening stewardship is really important. In this dashboard, we're looking at a role-based dashboard that gives us flexibility to look at key scorecard indicators, a graphical view of revenue sources, and drillable reports like a budget to actual, which we all know is the lifeblood of many nonprofit organizations. So whether you're looking at reporting, performance measures, impact, it's really all about getting quicker insights to help ensure mission success. When Sarbanes-Oxley became law, it was aimed at keeping publicly traded companies in check from an audit compliance perspective, reporting perspective. Nonprofit organizations, although not completely targeted by Sarbanes-Oxley, adopted their own set of procedures to ensure sound financial health. Part of the audit for nonprofit organizations includes a separate compliance audit. One of the first questions we hear is, do I need an audit? Well, if you've received significant federal funds, either directly or from a pass-through grant, you do. Many states also require audits for nonprofits receiving over various dollar amounts in revenue or donations. Often your grantor may require it as well. And although all nonprofits are not legally required to conduct an audit, there are many strong reasons for larger organizations, and for our purposes here, I'm talking like over $250,000 in funding, to prioritize an audit for your organization. I wanted to share some great resources with you that are going to give you some specific requirements related to your state, plus federal requirements as well. These links will give you current data and it's maintained by the National Council of Nonprofits. So it's great information. It's great help for your team. And the requirements vary state to state, so it's important to not only check out the federal requirements and your grantor requirements, but your state requirements as well. Now, in my home state of Texas, for example, an audit is not typically required by the state, but other states do require audits, and sometimes even an audit committee. And because money moves around so much from an intrastate, interstate perspective, it's really important to have a solid picture of where the money's flowing to and from, so you really understand and know ahead of time what your requirements are so you can plan accordingly. And there's always the whole federal side of that as well, which is usually tied to overall funding and then your grantor-specific requirements. So you're going to want to make sure your team has all the tools they need to plan ahead and make this process easier. So let's start by taking a look at the financial statement audit process. And this diagram gives you an overview of the financial audit process. There are various types of risk that an audit will address. However, the primary areas of risk assessment are the judgments and estimates that you use in your organization's accounting and the processes that you use to determine the numbers that are actually on your financial statements. So an auditor is going to test the various areas of risk to get an overall comfort level with your controls, your accounting, and your reporting processes in order to issue their opinion on GAAP conformity. Effective internal controls reduces the risk of a material misstatement. Based on the results of the controls testing, the auditor will gather some level of substantive evidence to test your accounting and reporting processes. This generally involves checking your calculations, examining the records, the source documents that support the balances in transactions, confirming certain balances in transactions with third parties, and, where applicable, physically observing assets. So, in order to have audit-ready financials, you will always need well-documented transactions and balances, and this is going to ensure that your audit is efficient and that costs are kept to a minimum while producing a satisfactory result. The key to audit readiness is well-documented transactions and balances, so we're going to focus in on this and drill into this a little bit. Having an audit-ready financials is really easier in theory than in practice. An experienced auditor will tell you that every financial audit begins with this lofty goal to focus on the areas that involve accounting complexity and judgment calls, which are the riskier areas of the financial statements. However, the audit process quickly ends up focused on reconciling and tracking the numbers through the accounting system because the accounting is not always well organized and documented. So when the financials are not audit ready, the auditor spends too many hours trying to understand the day-to-day accounting processes and verifying the data flows before focusing on those really important big picture complexities of an organization's financial statements. Clearly, we want to make the audit process as easy and efficient as possible. And one of the first steps to doing that is to get organized. So in order to keep that audit focus on complexity and risk where it should be, it's critical to logically organize all your transactions so they can be traced from the financial statements to the general ledger and to the subledgers and supporting documents and back again. This is the key to any successful audit experience. By taking a holistic view of the financial statement preparation and establishing a complete path from the transactions to reports and reconciliations, you can ensure that the auditor will be able to easily and effectively test your organization's accounting processes. Accounting for funds, program expenses, restrictions can be greatly improved through automation from technology software that is built for the audit process. Because the key to a successful financial audit is to organize and document all of your transactions with a clear audit trail from the financial statement all the way down to the transaction and supporting documents. The more automation you can add to your processes, the less you have to rely on manual spreadsheets, calculations, and reconciliations, the better your audit experience is going to be. Once your accounting process is well documented and auditable, you need to present your financials, your reconciliations, and your supporting documents in a timely manner. This is another area where accounting software and technology can really help. A fast accounting period close and a well-organized system takes up less time for the finance department, and that time is going to let you be more responsive, that you're going to save. The time you're going to save is going to allow you to be more responsive to the auditor's request for information, which is saving your auditor time as well. They might even reduce your audit fees, and if the automation can sufficiently reduce the time spent on fieldwork and testing, that's even more savings. These efficiency and accuracy gains from automation easily outweigh any cost incurred in moving away from manual spreadsheets. Another way to speed up your close and get started with the audit process is through the use of subledgers. By keeping a separate subledger for receivables, for example, you can close the subledger before you completely close the general ledger and let the auditors get started, because here's where they're going to spend some extra time testing accounts receivable than other less risky areas that they might be looking at. This allows audit work on your financial close process to occur simultaneously, saving time. The best accounting systems let you have multiple subledgers for each company or entity in your organization, and not just a single set of subledgers for all entities to use at once. While it's beneficial for you to streamline and automate your accounting and financial close processes with technology solutions, it also makes life easier for your auditor. Automation removes the risk of manual spreadsheet errors, making your calculations faster and more reliable, and that reduces the amount of time the auditor spends rechecking your accounting calculations. So we've talked about how successful audits depend on your auditor's ease of tracing all the transactions from the original transaction and supporting documents through the business processes and onto the financial statements. Using an accounting system that is purpose-built to manage and demonstrate the accounting path will set the stage for both you and your auditors to have a positive and smooth audit experience. We've noted just a few of some of the more complex and risky areas in nonprofit accounting and audits, like restrictions, grants, funds, programs. And the top accounting system is going to help you avoid mistakes in these areas by automatically establishing a process, providing templates, handling calculations, and staying current with the latest accounting guidance. Automation can really take the human error out of these risky areas. You can also make life easier for yourself and your auditor and your finance team by moving to the cloud. Cloud-based accounting systems are ideal for providing auditors access to read and investigate all the data within your accounting system while preventing them from editing or creating any new data. With the cloud accounting system, you can allow your auditors to have complete read-only access to your system where they can log in anytime from any location. You also control when the auditor can access your system, limiting access. You might want to do it quarterly or year-end reviews. But cloud accounting systems allow you and your auditor to click into any figures and numbers in the financial statements and drill all the way down to the general ledger and the subledgers, the reports, reconciliations, original transactions, which is exactly what the auditor needs to do to test and investigate key accounting processes. Best cloud accounting systems let the auditors go one step further and run purpose built-in reports and reconciliations on demand to confirm your accounting process, giving the auditors a high level of confidence that the transactions are complete and accurate. In addition, the best systems let you attach supporting documents to each transaction so the auditor can click to view source documents that support your accounting treatment. This self-service model for reports and documents really speeds up the audit process, allowing auditors to investigate reconciliations and transactions without having to constantly come to you for every single document that they're looking at. And the other benefit of this is that it really makes that movement to a paperless office that saves so much time and money. It makes it so much easier for everyone on the finance team as well as your auditors. So I was just talking with you about that remote process of allowing auditors to remotely audit your system, and that has been such a huge benefit, especially over the last couple of years with some of the lockdowns and people working remotely. It's been great savings for organizations to be able to grant access, read-only access to their external auditors, and be able to have those auditors access everything that they need. So we've had lots of customers that have taken advantage of this over the last couple of years, and they're saving not only significant time, but travel expenses and significant billing hours and dollars that they would have to pay normally for an audit. So honestly, I don't think we'll ever go back to the way things were. But I wanted to show you this because it's actually an example of one of our audit and compliance dashboards. In this case, you can see kind of the pre-FASB 958 versus FASB 116, 117, where we're still maintaining both versions. So obviously the new requirements with FASB 958 are being reflected there, but if we want to keep our previous way so we have some consistency and some information available to us, it's all automated for you. And this is all part of that automation process and strengthening nonprofit accountability that we're talking about that you should expect with your accounting system. I wanted to share, this is a great quote from one of our customers, Life Unlimited, regarding what we're talking about here with the paperless and remote audits. And Brian said, annual audits are 50% faster and tremendously easier with up to 15 fewer hours required of the accounting team. Everything is digitized with no more paper. So if auditors have a question, I can just pull a record from Sage Intacct and send it. I don't have to go to the filing cabinet and dig out documentation. So that's what we're talking about here. It's just part of the ongoing automation process. So in order to have audit-ready financials, you need well-documented transactions and balances that are calculated accurately and can be produced in a timely manner. Accounting for some of the more complex aspects of nonprofit organization can create complexity in the financial audit process. However, cloud accounting systems and best-in-class solutions can really streamline and automate the organization of funding sources, documentation of accounting treatment, calculation and reconciliation of all the numbers, closing and consolidation of the books, and preparation of the financial statements. Cloud accounting, true cloud accounting software will save your finance team and your auditors time and prove to your key stakeholders that your financial statements are audit ready. I wanted to share this with you just because it's a great story, a great customer, but one of the highlights for Meals on Wheels, this is Meals on Wheels America, they had in using Sage Intacct, they experienced lots of gains, but one of them that I particularly like to highlight is a 60% shorter audit preparation time. That's significant to the finance team and to the cost for the organization of the audit. So again, one of those important things to check out and really understand when you're looking at software, there's a lot of financial benefits that you're going to get out of the software that you didn't have before. So sometimes it's not so much the cost of the software as it is comparing that to the gains that you're going to get on the other side. Now I'm going to pass things over to Jane, and she's going to take some of these concepts that we've been talking about, and she's going to show you how that really works inside the technology solution of Sage Intacct.
Thanks, Joan, and hello, everyone. So as Joan mentioned, I will be taking you through a demonstration of Sage Intacct and how it can help you get ready for your audit and be prepared so that you can go out and get the funding that you need as an organization. So what I've done is I've broken this presentation down into three main areas. So I want to get into the solution at first and start giving you a look at reporting, because at the end of the day, much of our audit is going to be driven based on the financial statements and detailed reports that you can generate. So we'll take a look at how you can access the solution, how you can be presented with data immediately when you log in, and then additionally, how you can get that information to your auditors. We'll do this through looking at a series of reports and customizable dashboards that will be built to fit your needs. We'll then move on to looking at our audit trail. So Sage Intacct has a fully integrated audit trail that's going to allow you to go from a high level of detail down to the most minute level of detail in just a matter of clicks. So we'll take a look at how you can go from a report and drill down to transactional level detail, pull up documentation, pull up approval history, and see information about who has made changes to which record. We'll also take a look at how user and security access is measured and monitored. And then for those organizations that require it, if you are in need of HIPAA compliance, we'll talk a little bit about our advanced audit trail that will allow you to get that next layer of granularity with your security and allow you to see who is accessing that personal identifying information. And lastly, we'll wrap it up with taking a look at how processes flow through Sage Intacct. This is going to be very important for your auditors because they want to ensure that you have the proper internal controls in place to make sure that when a transaction is being entered, it's being approved appropriately, it's not being changed or edited by someone that it shouldn't be. So we'll walk through some processes and ensure that those internal controls are set up to meet your needs. Now, keeping in mind this entire time that Sage Intacct is a best-in-class solution built on a modern cloud platform. What that means for your organization is not only that we are going to support you today and get you ready for your audit and prepare you to go out and meet the compliance requirements that you have to so that you can secure the funding that you need. We are also going to be with you to watch you grow as an organization. So today, more than ever, it is so important to be on the cloud, have access to your data from anywhere, from any device, and that is what Sage Intacct is going to provide. And then as you grow and you want to integrate with other solutions, bringing that data in so that you can drill down and get to information that may not even be within Sage Intacct. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the software. I've logged into Sage Intacct, and as you'll notice, I am in a web browser. So we've mentioned Sage Intacct is a modern solution that's built on a cloud platform. So you can access the solution from any device, any browser. It's really up to you and how you access the internet. You'll notice that I'm logged in as Carla Grace. And so this is how a lot of that internal control that we've talked about is going to start coming into play. Every user is going to have a logon, and behind that logon, they'll have a role that determines what information they can see throughout the solution. And so when Carla logs on, she's taken directly to her main visibility area, right? It's important for Carla to see what's going on in her organization on a real-time basis. Now, Carla is the director of finance. So she has a dashboard that she has defined specifically meeting the needs of what she needs to see when she logs into the solution. So Carla, very financially driven, therefore she's monitoring her financial statements, maybe approving some journal entries, and she's able to look at her reports by many different dimensions. So Sage Intacct has a dimensional structure that's going to allow you to code data and then report by department, by grant, vendor, program, even event. So you can start getting into thinking about how do I need to see my data, and then how can I slice and dice my reports so that I can see everything that I need to see. And so this dashboard has been defined specifically for Carla, but she has other dashboards that she can see as well. So you're not going to be limited as far as what information you see when you log in. As you can see, Carla has a number of reports on this dashboard, and then she has access to a number of other dashboards as well. So if she needs to go work on the budget or work on grants, she can head over to those dashboards and it will give her real-time information specifically about those areas. So Sage Intacct provides you real-time reporting at your fingertips as soon as you log into the system. Now let's switch hats for a second and let's go over and look at Charla. Now Charla is a program director, and so what Charla is going to see when she logs in is going to be different and much more limited than what Carla saw when she logged in. So as a program director, what's important for Charla is to monitor her program, her expenditure forecast, and look at where she is budget to actual with the specific program. It's also important for her to monitor the requests that she has put in. So if she put in purchase requisitions, she wants to know, have they been converted to accounts payable invoices? Maybe she hosts events as part of her program, and so she can track that sort of information. But this is just to show you how granular Sage Intacct can get with security by defining separate views for each user or type of user and allowing that information to be displayed. Now, Charla might only see this information might only be about her specific program, whereas Carla is going to see information about the entire organization. And so that just gives you two different examples of what visibility and dashboards can look like for different users within your organization. Now, we've looked at two dashboards that show really heavy financial information. It's also important to point out that within Sage Intacct, you can track information in addition to that financial information. So if we come over here and switch our dashboard to more of a metrics-based dashboard, this dashboard will show that we're also able to track the mission of your organization. So audits, super fun, right? Everybody loves getting an audit done. Not really, but the reason that we do it is so that we can serve our mission and continue to do what your wonderful organizations are doing out there in the world. And so we do this audit because we have to. But if you can then take that audit and empower yourselves to improve your mission and improve upon what you're doing, you can use the financial solution to track that. And so this is a dashboard that's tracking financial information alongside some statistical information. So here you're going to see I'm tracking the number of clients served, the number of meals served, so that I can start to do some calculations with these numbers against my financial numbers. And I can start to publish how well I'm doing as an organization. What is my program efficiency? How much am I actually contributing to my programs versus spending on general and administrative? The power behind that is you can start to publish those numbers. And that right there is going to help you secure funding because you have the data, you have the numbers to back up what you're doing. And that's the power within Sage Intacct, is that not only does it take you and get you audit-ready financials, of course, so that you can go out and keep doing what you're doing without any authoritative issues. But it also allows you to take that information, take those audited financials, combine it with what you're doing as an organization on a statistical basis, and start producing metrics that are going to help you make decisions for your future as well as secure funding. So wanted to show that briefly just so that you have an understanding that yes, finance directors are going to have a ton of financial information on their dashboard, but you're also going to have the ability to further your mission by using Sage Intacct's visibility dashboards and reporting. Now that we've talked a bit about that real-time reporting that you're going to get through dashboards, let's look a little bit more into the reports that you're going to secure out of Sage Intacct. So if we come here and go down to my compliance dashboard, this dashboard is going to have on it a few statements that are going to be likely required for your organization. So here we have a statement of activities and a statement of financial position. I show these reports to bring up to you that within Sage Intacct, you're going to get 150 reports, over 150 reports that are standard, delivered with the solution. Because Sage Intacct focuses so heavily in the nonprofit space, we know that there are a number of reports that will be standard for most of our nonprofit clients. And because of that, we provide those as standard reports that you just get right when you get Sage Intacct. And so here you're looking at those. These can be run at any point in time. They can be filtered down to a certain date. So we have those activities and financial position, as well as some 990 statements. So in addition to all of the standard trial balances, check registers, balance sheets, income statements, you are going to get those nonprofit specific reports that you don't have to create. A lot of times what we find is that our clients are taking this, our clients who weren't working with us before they were taking this data out of their previous solution, putting it into Excel, and then creating these statements that way. With Sage Intacct, you have this set up. It's already there. All you have to do is run it. You're never having to recreate a report. And when updates come out, like when the restriction tracking changed, the terminology on the restriction tracking changed, we stay up to date on those. So if something happens, if there's a new statement issued, we will stay up to date and make changes to those reports or issue the new reports that are required. In addition to that, I'll also show you this disclosures dashboard. So this is an example of some of the disclosures that we know that you will need. So Sage Intacct does provide the ability to create those disclosures. So your footnotes and your disclosures to your financial statements can all be created within the report writing tool that Sage Intacct provides. In addition to that, we can also create links out to your authority boards that will be updating you on when statements and disclosure updates happen. And so here we have a link that's going to take us out to this new liquidity disclosure. This is just an example, but it could be taking you to any new statements or pronouncements that were made and then create all of those footnotes or disclosures here, and then place those in your financial statements. So really with Sage Intacct, you're going to get the ability to create any and all of those reports that you need that are required by any governing board. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at our report center, where all of those standard reports are going to be, and then any report that you decide to create on your own will be stored here as well. So what I've done is opened up our financial report center. When you get this, we have, as I mentioned, over 150 reports that are going to be provided to you as standard. So these will be able to be run at any point in time. Anytime you want to run a report, you just click on the output format. We're going to run everything in HTML, but you can always immediately put it out to PDF or Excel if you have the need to do that. It will then present you with a prompt page asking you what filters you want to place on this report. So in this instance, we can filter down on program or entity. That could be any of the dimensions, so vendor or grant or restriction. Really, any of those dimensions will come into play. And then you'll just enter the date that you want to run the report as of, and then the report will display to you. Now, with Sage Intacct, you are going to get the ability to report by any of those roll-ups that you define. And so we've talked about dimensions, how you can report by program and grant and vendor and entity, location, all of those items. But when it comes to your accounts, you're going to have needs to report your accounts differently on different reports. And so what we do there is we create account groups. And in this case, what we've done is we've rolled up all of these accounts into this account group. Now you can have as many account groups as you want. So for grants, I know sometimes they require you report on just a few categories. And so you might group and roll up accounts into those few categories and use those account groups on those reports. In this case, this is a pretty standard statement of functional expense. We're just rolling up all of our salaries and benefits accounts into an account group called personnel expenses. But that's what allows you to create any and every report that you need, because instead of having to pull a trial balance out of your accounting system and then aggregate everything within Excel, what we do is we have the system aggregate everything for us, and then you can just pull those account groups into a report. And so this is what a standard report is going to look like. You can always come out, print this to PDF, email it out, or run it to Excel. We also have the ability to schedule reports, so we can schedule them to be sent out to anyone in any format. We can also have them be stored on a drive location. So maybe you use Google Drive or another cloud platform for your document storage. We can set it up so that every Monday at 8 a.m., those documents go there and get uploaded to that area. Now, in addition to those standard reports that I've told you that you get, you are also going to get a report writer that's going to allow you to either duplicate our existing standard reports and edit them, or to create your own reports. So instead of having to do that in Excel and redo it every month, you do it in the report writer, and then it's there and you can just run the report as we just showed you. So what I'm going to do is I am going to open up the edit functionality within this report and show you what the report writer looks like. So this report writer can be used to duplicate an existing report and edit that report to meet your needs, or it can be used to create reports from scratch. So if you have grantors who have specific reporting requirements that are abnormal from the way that you usually report, you will use this tool to create those reports so that, again, you create them one time and then run them when you need them. Within the report writer, you're going to have the functionality sectioned off very easily to understand. So you have rows and columns. It's really like a big pivot table. So within the rows, you're going to select what you want to see in your rows. In this case, we are pulling in those account groups. So we said that we want to see our account groups. We'll go in and select the ones we want to see, and we can have additional roll-up levels here as you saw in the report. So we'll have our expenditures grouped in the expenditure arena, and then we can select what level we want to see those at. Then in your columns, you're going to see what you want to display in the columns. Very easy to use and very user-friendly. So here it's going to say, this is a budget column. Therefore, we want to select the budget version that we're reporting on. You'll also select your reporting period here. One thing in all of your reporting periods can be defined, and we do have the ability to do inception to date reporting for those projects and grant purposes. Now, once that's set up, let's say you want to make a change. So let's go in and say, instead of seeing our expenditures grouped by account number, we want to see them grouped by program. All you need to do is come in and select the dimension that you want to group by, say OK, and then we'll go ahead and preview that report. Now you're going to see the difference in that before we saw all of those account numbers, but now we're seeing everything broken down by the actual dimension, in this case, program, instead of by those account numbers. So it really is that easy to utilize the report writer, make changes, and even create your own reports from scratch with all of the formatting and filtering tools built in. So now that we've discussed visibility and reporting in detail, let's go ahead and go back to that Director of Finance dashboard and take a look at the audit trail that is built in completely to Sage Intacct. And so what I'm going to do now is go from this report that I have on a dashboard. Now, you've noticed throughout the demonstration that many of my reports do have this blue drill capability. So any of your reports can be drillable, where you can go down to the detail that sits behind these balances that are making up your report. So let's say, as a finance director, you are reviewing this report and you decide that you want to look into this conferences account because it's far over budget. So you would just click in and that would take you down to some more detailed information, and you can continue drilling until you get to that transaction level of detail. Now, many of us at this point in time would export this to Excel and comb through the details, but let's go ahead and actually go down to the source transaction that's making up one of our line items. So here we see this $10,000. You might think, oh, that seems like a lot. You can drill in. And within a few clicks, I'm at the AP bill. So this is where the data entry was done. Now, that means that your auditors are going to have the same functionality. So when you talk about an audit trail and you say, okay, here's my statement of activities, and they say, well, I want to see what makes up this number, that's fine. You can give them read-only access, and we'll show you an example of that in a bit, where you give them read-only access and they can get down to this level of detail too. Instead of asking you, hey, go pull a file for me with the attachment's already there. Here's the Word document or the PDF that you attached during data entry. They can pull that up and it is stored with the bill so that you don't have to have that paper stored in your office. It's all electronic, all paperless. In addition to that, you are going to have a full approval history on this transaction. You're going to be able to review exactly which account and which dimensions this transaction was coded to. If you ever have any questions or need to make corrections on this bill, you're going to be able to come in and write something to one of your coworkers. Here we can see that Carla Grace was talking to Penny Smith and asking her to add a grant number. So this is a tool that allows you to communicate from within your transaction. So I'm on an AP bill. Instead of calling Penny and saying, hey, Penny, add the grant number, or sending her an email, that documentation is never connected to this bill, right? And so from an audit trail perspective, how incredible is this that Carla's come in and said, hey, maybe we got late grant notification. This needs to be coded to a grant. You then have the history of that, and you can figure out very easily why it was changed instead of having to go sort through your email. You are also going to have an audit trail throughout the entire solution. And what this is going to do is track any changes that have been made to a record. So let's go ahead, and I already have some changes made. We're going to go out to our reporting area and take a look at our entities. And what we can do here is we can open this up in view mode. And here's one of our entities that we created. So this is when we get into your chart of accounts and how things are rolling up and how things are reporting. It's really important that you have an audit trail on that information, because let's say someone goes in and mistakenly makes a change. You want to be able to view that audit trail and see when people had made changes. And so here on this entity, we're able to record who made a change. So we can see Carla Grace made a change, what she did, and exactly what she changed. So what she changed a name to and from, if she changed fields, all of that is going to be recorded with the solution as well. In addition to that, you are going to get reports that track all access to the system. So here in our history and reports, we have an action report, an audit event report, an email delivery history. And so this is a great place where you can come through and take a look at anything that had been changed within your solution. Let's go ahead and say we wanted to run an audit event report. This is going to allow me to filter down on a certain day, time, and you can just view exactly what had been changed. So here we can see exactly what Carla Grace has been doing, and you can drill down to that transaction. So you're going to get so many auditing capabilities from the transaction level, but then for those administrative users, if you have a technical team or if your auditors need to see reports like this of an audit log of who made changes to a record, you're going to get that as well. So that is a full summary on our audit trail. Let's go ahead and talk about that advanced audit trail. So we do have something called Advanced Audit Trail. And what that is for our customers that might be in healthcare. If you store any personal health information in your solution, this is going to provide you with HIPAA compliance. So if you need to store patient records or customer or client records within your finance solution, and you need to protect that with HIPAA compliance, the Advanced Audit Trail is going to give not only who made changes reporting, but it's also going to give you reporting on who accessed that personal health or personally identifiable information. And so here is an example of an advanced audit trail report. And we can see that Emma was accessing a vendor record that stored some personal information on it. And you can see exactly what she did. She just viewed that information. And so that is where the advanced audit trail comes into play, is when your company requires HIPAA compliance because you are storing that detailed data within your solution and you need to track who has access to it. So that wraps up our discussion on the audit trail. Let's move into our automated processing and the internal controls within Sage Intacct. So I'm back to playing the role of Carla Grace, my Director of Finance, and I've come here to talk to you about how processing and internal controls work within Sage Intacct. And so the first thing we want to do is head over to our user setup and take a look at how each of our users are set up and how you can give permission to certain users to do certain things. This is what is going to help bolster that internal control. So when we looked at, for example, Charlotte earlier, we know that she has more limited control than Carla did because they have different roles in the system. And that does two things. One, it satisfies your need for internal controls. It makes your auditors happy, but it also makes the solution a lot easier to use. When Charlotte gets in, she doesn't want to see everything that Carla is seeing because then she would be overwhelmed with the amount of data. You really want to limit people down to exactly what they need to see. So let's go ahead and go in and look at Charla's subscriptions. Sage Intacct is a unique solution because while most solutions that you'll find out in the marketplace today were built by really technical people or software developers, Sage Intacct was built by accountants to be used by accountants. And so what that means is the administration of this tool is very easy. You'll see here, especially with security, it's really just a point and click and checkbox type of security. And so you will select which modules you want to give each of your users access to. And then even beyond that, if we go into purchasing, you will say whether you want to give list, view, add, edit, and delete capability to each of those areas. And so that's where, again, it's super powerful. You don't want to give delete capability to everybody. And so you can come in, mark that, uncheck that delete, and then people wouldn't be able to delete things. And so this is another really strong tool for your audit because it's going to provide those internal controls that are required so that you don't get a finding on lack of segregation of duties. So once that is set up, if we come back over to Charla and let's go ahead and take a look at her main menu, we can see that that's been limited based on what we selected in those permissions. And let's go to purchasing. and go to her purchasing overview. Now within the purchasing overview, we can see that Charlotte can create a purchase requisition and she can see the process flow for the rest of the purchasing process, but she can't come in and do any of that. So if she's creating the purchase requisition, she's not doing the receiving, she's not creating the invoice. That duty is delegated to someone else. Because those duties will be delegated to another user, that means that you have to have a very tight internal control policy around approvals within your finance and accounting solution. And so let's take a look at what processing transactions with an approval process looks like in Sage Intacct. So anytime a transaction is entered, let's say it is a purchase requisition, you will have a full approval routing that will be built out to the specifications of your organization. So let's say you have, if someone from a certain department enters it, and then it goes to a certain manager, and then based on the dollar threshold, it goes to those approvers accordingly. Well, on every transaction, you'll have a full audit trail history of where this transaction has been, but you'll also have an approval history showing you who approved the transaction, when they approved it, and any comments that they may have had. So in this case, it was a purchase requisition that Charlotte entered. Carla Grace approved it and made a comment that said it looks great. Carla also would have had the option to reject, sending it back to Charlotte and making comments about what she needed her to change. So that's what it's going to look like after the fact. Let's take a look at what approval looks like within Sage Intacct. On the approver's dashboard, they are going to have all of the tasks that they need to approve. So in this case, we're going to be working with journal entries, but you would have your purchasing transactions, your accounts payable transactions, anything that you needed to approve would show up here. So you would get this. You'll also get an email if something's pending your approval, and then you can drill in and approve it from there as well. We'll open up all of the journal entries that we need to approve. And at this point in time, you have the ability to select them all and approve them, or go in and actually view on the record. So if you wanted to view the entire detailed record, you'd be able to do that at this point in time. So now we're reviewing everything. We could look at any attachments that were associated with this transaction. We could see the history of who submitted it, when they submitted it, and at this point in time, maybe you wanted to make a quick change. Maybe you decided that you wanted to allocate this retirement. One thing that we haven't talked about as far as audit-ready financials is letting the financial solution do the work for you. So instead of you having to manually do things like allocations, which leaves a ton of room for error, go ahead and set up an allocation code that has all of the predefined percentages in the background. And then we'll tab out of that. As soon as we do that, it's going to gray out everything that was built into that allocation. And at that point in time, you can come down here and review it and say, okay, it's allocated to these programs based on the code that I selected. And so if you have that predefined, there's no room for error. The system's doing the work for you, and you're not having to have a million lines on a journal entry. You just enter the one line and it does the allocation automatically for you. So that is one functionality that's also going to help with your auditability, because it is going to have that ability to do that work automatically for you. But from there, once you've reviewed the transaction, you can just go ahead, select it, say you want to approve, and it'll be removed from your task list. So that is how we set up internal controls. We define the roles and decide who needs to do what. We then go about setting up approval policies, and then you have your users enter their transactions. Those transactions go to the approver when they need to, they approve them, and then that approval stays with the record forever. So your auditors can always drill down, see who approved the transaction and any changes that were made. So with that being said, I want to show you one last thing, and that is an auditor dashboard. So our clients will actually set up dashboards for their auditors to use. So they will give their auditors read-only access, where they will have all of their schedules out there pre-built. They don't have to build them in Excel because they're pre-built as a report. And then they'll use that drill functionality to be able to give their auditors the ability to go down and actually look at, if we're looking at a check register the bills that make up a certain check. If they want to drill down to this exact invoice, they can pull up the attachment so that you're not having to provide them with that documentation. Imagine how much shorter your audit would be if you didn't have to create schedules in Excel, and then you didn't have to provide them all the backup documentation because it's already there. They can also pull up the check records and see how it was paid. They can go and look at your bank information and look at those bank statements. So this is really bringing our entire discussion full circle and bringing it back to not only are you going to get the ability to create really streamlined reports that give you real-time information and allow you to drill down to the detail, an audit trail that backs up every transaction that you're making, internal controls and processes that automate your data entry, make sure it's correct, make it streamlined, and give an approval process. But you're also going to be able to provide your auditors with the ability to get into your solution and do the audit paperless and right from where you do your work. So to wrap up, we spent this half an hour of my time talking about audit-ready financials within Sage Intacct and looking at the solution. We started out looking at visibility, reporting, and dashboards, looking at those different roles and how different reports could look. We then moved into going into the detail, viewing that audit trail and checking out the advanced audit trail for HIPAA compliance. And then we took a look at streamlining your processes with automated tools like the allocation tools and approvals through internal controls and user security. Again, all built on that modern best-in-class cloud platform. So I want to thank you all so much for your time today, and I'm going to turn it back over to Joan to wrap us up.
We've been keeping up with your questions as we go today. If there's a couple of questions that we don't get through, we will make sure we follow up with you afterwards. Sage Intacct is the accounting vendor of choice for all types of nonprofit organizations. And this slide just shows you a variety of the logos. So you see here everything from human services to healthcare to international relief to faith-based organizations, all types of nonprofits that are taking advantage of best-in-class cloud technology to help them be audit-ready and have that gains and ease on their financial reporting and on their audit side. If you are in the market for software and you're looking for the right software, I just want to highly encourage you to do your homework, do review the vendor's reputation. It's so important, and so many times I talk to people who didn't take the time necessarily to do all of this, and it's just a huge important step that you want to make sure you do. And one of the things you'll find out is that we have lots of customers that are willing to talk to you if you're in that process, so we're happy to share those with you. Check on industry awards. You'll see that we have the highest customer satisfaction levels of any financial accounting software. And check on endorsements. Like for us, we are the only preferred provider of cloud financial management for the AICPA. And IFAC, the International Federation of Accountants, also uses Intacct for their own back office operations. So there's a lot of ways to do your homework and to check into things and kind of get that added information that you're looking for as you go down this path. One of the important things to also keep in mind as you're looking at potential vendors is that with Sage, you're a member of the community, and you're able to take advantage of things like membership masterclasses, customer meetups, a Sage Intacct community, an online community where you can ask questions and get help and information that you need. There's regional user conference, and then there's our national conference. There's lots of resources, and you're part of the family. You're part of the community, and you have access to things that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. So it's a really important thing that you want to check out. As I mentioned earlier, you are going to be getting a recording of this webcast. You'll also get a PDF of the slides. When you do that, you'll see some hyperlinks here. For some additional information, check out our website. You can also get the latest G2 grid report for nonprofit accounting solutions. There's product tours that you can link to and watch if you would like to share those with your colleagues. Lots of information from customer stories, case studies, videos, all kinds of things that might be helpful and useful to your organizations. So check those out. Thank you so much for being with us today. We know how valuable your time is. We really appreciate you. We want to help, And there's contact information here, so feel free to reach out if there's something we can do to help you. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.